Radharani. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vana Shari. Yamuna Tira Vana Shari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Ballabho Givaradhari. Gopijana Ballabho Givaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nice cartels. New York City, Harinam. A good one. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the third canto, chapter 23, correct? And verse 3, correct? Okay, good. I prepared for the right verse. I'll use this because it's easier. Visrijya kamam dambam cha dvesham lobham agham adam apramato dhyata nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Ladies? Oh, go ahead. Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Ladies? Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Visrijya kamam dhambam cha dvesham lobham agham madam apramato dhyatha nityam tejiyangsham atoshayat. Visrijya, giving up, kamam, lust, dambam, pride, cha, and dvesham, envy, lobham, greed, agam, sinful activities, madam, vanity, Apramata, sane. Udyata, laboring diligently. Nityam, always. Teji Yangsham, her very powerful husband. Ato Shayat, she pleased. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C.E. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. Purport. Here are some of the qualities of a great husband's great wife. Kadama Muni is great by spiritual qualification. Such a husband is called Teji Yangsham, most powerful. Although a wife may be equal to her husband in advancement in spiritual consciousness, she should not be vainly proud. Sometimes it happens that the wife comes from a very rich family, as did Devahuti, the daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu. She could have been very proud of her parentage, but that is forbidden. The wife should not be proud of her parental position. She must always be submissive to the husband and must give up all vanity. As soon as the wife becomes proud of her parentage, her pride creates great misunderstanding between the husband and wife, and their nuptial life is ruined. Devahuti was very careful about that, and therefore it is said here that she gave up pride completely. Devahuti was not unfaithful. The most sinful activity for a wife is to accept another husband or another lover. Chanika Pandit has described 4 kinds of enemies at home. If the father is in debt, he is considered to be an enemy. If the mother has selected another husband in the presence of her grown-up children, she is considered to be an enemy. If a wife does not live well with her husband but deals very roughly, then she is an enemy. And if a son is a fool, he is also an enemy. In family life, father, mother, wife, and children are assets. But if the wife or mother accepts another husband in the presence of her husband or son, then, according to Vedic civilization, she's considered an enemy. A chaste and faithful woman must not practice adultery. That is a greatly sinful act. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Kam Karoti Vachalam Bangaladaya Dekrim Jadgripatam Ham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Maharam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hare Krishna. We're continuing the topic of yesterday, in which we have begun to hear about Devahuti and Kardama's relationship, which will progress in the next verses into the circumstances that lead to the birth of Kapila. But to set the stage, to get us prepared, we've heard in the previous chapter about how they were married and about their different qualities. But now we hear about the quality of their married life itself. And in what ways Devahuti demonstrates ideal womanhood according to the Vedic system. Ideal womanhood is a topic that can be very difficult in today's age. There are those who would eliminate any question of idealness that is specific to a woman and not to a man. That would make men and women equal in every respect. In which case, the very concept of ideal womanhood would not be accepted. But the Vedas contain much, particularly these Puranas, contain many, many narrations about that give us an idea about ideal womanhood, and of course they also give us ideas about ideal men. And as is pointed out in the very first sentence of this purport, Prabhupada speaks of the qualities, how does he put it here? Here are some of the qualities of a great husband's great wife. Right? So the two go together. That to have a great wife requires a great husband, and vice versa. To have a great husband requires a great wife. Behind every great man, there's a great woman, right? The man in the married life, it is described that the wife is the better half. They are two halves of one partnership. And in that partnership, it's often described that the wife is actually the better half of the partnership, giving the strength that the other half needs in order to be able to fulfill the man's duties in life. So this purport begins to enter into the qualities of an ideal woman, but not just an ideal woman, an ideal wife. In the previous purport, Srila Prabhupada makes a point of describing how by nature men and women are different. By nature, a man, in general, and this is not, these are generalities, these are not absolute. And we heard very nicely yesterday about the dangers of absolutizing something, as opposed to what was the middle path. How did he describe it? Okay, contextualizing. There's absolutizing on the one side, relativizing on the other side. But in the middle path is to contextualize. So similarly, the descriptions that we found yesterday and we're finding here need to be understood in the context of the narration, and to accept that generalities are used in order to convey a message. So yesterday, the generalities or not yesterday, yeah, maybe it was yesterday, yeah. The generalities regarding the nature of men and women. That by nature, men are stronger. They're physically stronger. This is a pretty good generality that holds true much of the time. I know there are some ladies who who will disagree, well, who are definitely stronger than some men. But if you take men as a whole, the strength, the physical strength. And what's undeniable is that only women have the capacity to bear children. And the act and the business of bearing children requires a certain type of body and a certain type of mentality in order to appropriately nurture and take care of children. So Prabhupada often makes these clear points about the differences, and therefore, because there are such differences, there are specific ways in which men and women can relate for maximum harmony and progressive life. Reading this particular purport, I was reminded of a discussion I recently had with my daughter, Nilambari, about the concept of chastity in married life. And she began narrating a story which I hadn't heard, but I looked it up today. Maybe some of you have heard the story of Satyabhama's conversation with Draupadi in the Mahabharata. Anyone? Okay, so I wasn't alone. So as we've heard, Satyabhama is often considered Krishna's favorite in different ways, and that I don't have a deep understanding of all of that. But anyway, Satyabhama has come with Krishna, and she is visiting Hastinapur, and Draupadi is there. And they're sitting there talking and joking and laughing, and the Mahabharata is describing their exchange. And at one point, Satyabhama asks Draupadi, "How do you do it? How do you do it? Your husbands," and now this is another interesting, your husbands, but anyway, they do anything you ask. They're so obedient. Whatever you want, you get it. How do you do it? And then she starts listing out different things. Do you use a spell? Do you cast some spells on them? Is it this fragrance that you apply? All these things. Is it just your extraordinary beauty? How do you do it? And Draupadi looks at her and says, "What are you accusing me of? You think I'm that kind of woman that would use such wicked means to control their husband? No, that's not it." And then she begins to describe how diligently, as the word is used here, she serves her husbands. And the list is long and long and long. All the various things that she does, not only your husband, but the servants in the house. She adopts the position of a servant to such a deep and diligent fashion that her husbands do anything for her. She goes on to describe that not only does she serve them in every respect, but she also takes care of the household affairs. She manages the treasury of Hastinapur. In this way, she is able to achieve her ideal life. She knows she is fully protected. She knows that her husbands will do anything for her, whatever she needs, whatever she requires, she knows. She is fully secure. She is fully content. She is fully happy by this relationship that she has cultivated. Now, in this relationship, which Devahuti is also expressing, Devahuti, as we go on to hear, and as we're hearing today, is also engaged in the same relationship. She has built that same relationship. She has adopted that same relationship with Kardama. And we'll see how Kardama responds and reciprocates in the future verses, in the same way that the Pandavas respond to Draupadi's every need. But in the context of this, we find some interesting specifics, that it's not that the service that an ideal woman renders in her relationship with an ideal man, and we'll get to that if the man is not ideal, then the relationship changes. When the man himself is not also ideal, then women have to take a bit of a different position. And Prabhupada speaks of this. I'll get to that in a minute. But when the husband is ideal, when the husband is as described here, the word given for Kardama is tejiyam sham. Tejiyam sham. When the husband is powerful, when the husband has the qualities of an ideal man, then an ideal woman can relate to that man in this particular way and achieve the perfect matching of men and women in harmony and to produce the perfect family life. So in the context of this, the service is rendered without pride, without envy, without greed, without vanity. Now, I want to move aside here a little bit to how these qualities apply in our relationship with Krishna. The word chaste, when I was looking this up, studying a little bit, I thought, to explore the term chastity, because this ends here that a chaste and faithful woman. So the term chaste has been used in this purport. Now, chaste and chastity generally refers to sexual relations. And this in this particular context, it is also using that reference because to be a chaste and faithful wife means no relationships outside of marriage, and that is the fundamental principle that we as members of Srila Prabhupada's family aspire for. That we take vows when we're initiated to adhere to this principle of no sexual relationships outside of married life. So this is a fundamental of chastity. But we find that chastity expands in this context into the realm of a relationship of service. In a relationship of service in which there's an absence of certain qualities of vanity and pride and so on. So then I was exploring and I found that the term chaste in Srila Prabhupada's purports is also used for chaste devotee. We find the term chaste devotee He often is chaste wife is there, many, many places. But we also find Prabhupada using this term of chastity to describe the quality of a devotee in general, meaning you and me and all of us. We have a duty, or let us say responsibility, a need, I should say, a need to become chaste devotees. And being chaste devotees is similar to being a chaste wife, especially in the context described here, to be free of vanity, free of pride in our service to Sri Krishna, and to be fully faithful, not to be, well, I'll serve you today, Krishna, and I'll serve you, Radha Govinda, but tomorrow I'm going over to, Times Square, and I'm going to find someone else to serve. A devotee is chaste in that way of being only only diligently and only connected to the service of his Lord or her Lord. In the context of the conversation that I described of Draupadi and Satyabhama, Draupadi constantly uses the term "my lords," serving my Lord. They're my lords. So for us as devotees, here is our Lord. We're encouraged to develop the same attitude, both men and women, in our relationship with Krishna as a chaste wife has with their husband. So these descriptions are meaningful to us as well, all of us, in our relationship with Krishna. So this arrangement of ideal woman and ideal man coming together in a relationship of service, submission, and affection, as was described yesterday. What was it? Vishrambhyam and Gauravyam, right? Intimacy and Gora, some, how should I say, is honor. I can't remember. Do you remember, Krishna, the term Gora in this, as described here, is also used by Bhaktisiddhanta in a very famous poem of his, Pujala Ragamata Gaurava. Yeah? Yes. Pujala Ragamarga Gaurava Bhangi. Yeah. So that Gaurava, that with that same sense of awe, but also, anyway, that's another whole topic. So this relationship that's being described here is possible, and when both men and women take their roles and adopt roles which are appropriate, which nurture this type of relationship. If the Pandavas were not and in Draupadi's narration of how she repeatedly describes the qualities of the how their valor, their this, that, all the things that their tejasam, the power that they had, that inspires her to adopt that role. So similarly, in our relationships, we both men and women in married life need to aspire to fulfill these ideals. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Then what? So I thought it would be meaningful to read also another side to this. If I can get, oh boy, what happened here? Oh no, I've lost it. But I'll have to, it's a purport in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. It's important because Prabhupada talks about a woman in married life serving is not fallen. Do you remember that? And what to do in that case. Let's see if I can get it back. Somehow I pressed some buttons here, and I lost all the pages that I had saved. Okay. Okay. So yes, this is a similar purport. This is Śrimad Bhāgavatam 7:11-28. A chaste woman should not be greedy. Okay, so that's part of what we heard today. But satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs. This is when Draupadi speaks about her relationship, she describes how expertly she handles the household affairs, and should be fully conversant with religious principles. She should speak pleasingly and truthfully, and should be very careful and always clean and pure. Thus, a chaste woman should engage with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen. So then, similarly, this purport describes the service, but he makes a distinction that if someone who is, and he fallen in Prabhupada's words here, specifically if one is not a soul surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God, that he is understood to be contaminated. Thus, a chaste woman is advised not to agree to serve such a husband. It is not that a chaste woman should be like a slave, while her husband is Naradama, the lowest of men. Although the duties of a woman are different from those of a man, a chaste woman is not meant to serve a fallen husband. If her husband is fallen, it is recommended that she give up his association. Giving up the association of her husband does not mean, however, that a woman should marry again and thus indulge in prostitution. If a chaste woman unfortunately marries a husband who has fallen, she should live separately from him. Similarly, a husband can separate himself from a woman who is not chaste according to the description of the Shastra. The conclusion is that a husband should be a pure Vaishnava and that a woman should be a chaste wife with all the symptoms described in this regard. Then both of them will be happy and make spiritual progress in Krishna consciousness. So in our society, we've had difficulty sometimes with this men's roles. And I find that all too often the role of a woman's roles being submissive and this are emphasized without giving enough emphasis on the role of the man in that relationship. That putting all the force on women. This is the relationship of submission and service and protection, which is the essence of Vedic male-female relationships, depends equally on both partners. And this must be understood for it to work. Now, when the partners are not in one or the other is not up to the same ideal quality, then adjustments are needed. Some adjustments are needed, and we see this amongst devotees and amongst people that their roles in household life may need to be adjusted according to their specific qualities. Sometimes we find that women have to assume more responsibility because of the nature of the world. But ideally, as we've seen here, women are protected by strong husbands who enable them. And why is this so important? Because this produces good children. The Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna argues in the Gita against warfare because of the resulting husbandless women. And thus, he says that this lays the stage, it prepares the ground for Varna Sankara, that unwanted progeny. So this arrangement of men and women in marriage is so important successfully in order to have good children. Now, I'm observing it in our own family, that by the grace of God, at least our children are married, our daughters are married. My son decided he wasn't up to it. Anyway, that's another long story. But he's good. He doesn't have affairs or anything like that. But he decided not to marry. But fortunately, the husbands in these they support in a way that the children can be nurtured very, very nicely. That requires a relationship. In order to free the mothers to care for their children, the husbands, the fathers have to work hard. They have to take up a role that is. They have to take their role very seriously. So these arrangements, I suggest, when we talk about Srila Prabhupada's descriptions of the roles of husbands and wives and men and women in general, that we need, like Chaitanya Charan was describing, we have to contextualize so that we discover and see what is the underlying goal. And I suggest that there are two goals in these relationships. One is Krishna consciousness, how husband and wife can advance together spiritually. That's number one. And number two is how to raise children in a protected, sustaining, and nurturing environment, and also with Krishna consciousness. So I hope I've been able to say something that's useful. It's not an easy topic to discuss, and I hope that, and I'd especially like to hear from the ladies, if you think that I spoke okay. If it's yes, Charanti.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate this class.
One second, you're going to get a microphone so that so that the world can hear that it gets, this is,
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you. I felt like it was really informative. I actually just had a question about where you were reading about a chaste woman should not be greedy and expert in handling the affairs. When
excuse
you were,
me?
I was just wondering where you were reading from, where you got where you were talking about a chaste woman should not be greedy and expert in handling the household affairs. And it was
That's a purport. Yeah, 7th canto, 11th chapter, verse 28.
Yeah, there's actually a verse that I read at one point. It was in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it was talking about, I can't remember the devotee it was talking about. It was also referring to a woman shouldn't serve a fallen husband. But most women think that that means that you just leave them and divorce them and then get a new situation. So I'm just really appreciating the commentary about that was given about you just live separately and you make an adjustment that's actually conducive for both of you to practice Krishna consciousness, but not just not staying committed to your responsibility of marriage to some degree, because I think some people just avoid it if it's uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah. Of course, these are also contextual, and there you have, Srila Prabhupada encourages that if husband and wife, ideally, and there are a number of instances where he's encouraged, okay, you're not getting along, there's problems, there's this or that, whatever, live separately. But that may not always be enough. And divorce and remarriage and so on may be required. And I don't think that, personally, I think that this is a good instance of being able to contextualize Srila Prabhupada's statements and being able to see the underlying, goal here, because he uses some terminology. His objection is promiscuity. He's trying to, women should not be. He uses the term prostitute. He's saying, okay, not just give up your heart and then just run off to that. He's using an extreme sort of situation, but on the other hand, women also need protection. So if a husband is fallen and unable to provide and unable to take care, then yes, a woman, she can live separately, but then how is she being protected? And so then you have a dilemma there. So this is an instance of where you have to take a number of principles, a number of underlying factors in order to determine what is the best avenue for a person to take. That's when it comes down to life decisions like this. It's very important when we use Srila Prabhupada's purports and his statements to be able to really go deeply into them and make sure that we are understanding the principles and not just functioning on the superficial level of the details. Otherwise, we can make some mistakes. That's my comment on your comment.
Thank you. Yeah, the point about like the promise, like prostitution. From what I've read in the purports of Srila Prabhupada, marriage is actually supposed to purify the concentrated self-centeredness that the women have in their conditioned life. And so it's interesting when you're saying about we should understand how we can conceptualize this in these purports in our actual lives to make it practical for us to actually practice. Because in one way, you can think, oh, I shouldn't get divorced and I should just suffer in a really bad situation. And and then others say, okay, I should divorce so that I can be protected. And so it's like kind of understanding what's the result of the action that you're trying to do. Is it to enjoy? Is it to actually try and be Krishna conscious?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is there are many. Dharma is multifaceted and multidimensional, and it requires deep understanding of the underlying principles in order to apply them to a specific situation. So, I want to acknowledge my good wife for being such a supportive and ideal wife for now it'll be 43 years in just a month or so. So, and I beg her forgiveness for not being the ideal husband in every respect, but I keep trying. Any other comments, questions about today's verse, purport, topic? Yes. Yes, Krishna Kripa.
I just had a really simple comment. I'll wait until You're talking about how Prabhupada was saying we should be chaste to Krishna.
Yes.
And, is this Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
I just have to talk really into it. So Gopal Champu Prabhu had us chant the English of the Shikshashtaka, which ends with that amazing prayer, I know no one but Krishna is my Lord and he shall remain so, whether he handles me roughly by his embrace or whether he makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. That seems like the perfect expression of that sentiment.
Yes. That's what we aspire. Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna. You had brought up the how sometimes you touched on it, how sometimes there's an imbalance of, it's the woman's fault. The woman should be like this, versus the man also should be ideal. So, I guess maybe what is the cause of that? Why that mentality can so easily come in? Because it seems like seems to be overarching, you can say, consistency. Just the woman is like this, the woman.
Well, to quote Shivaram Swami, because men are stupid. He had a wonderful, recently, so recently, I think it was some months ago, he put out a little video just talking to women, saying, in general, why do you want to be like men? Men are stupid. Yeah, there's a certain lack of intelligence that men, although they have a certain quality of intelligence that is good at figuring things out, and it's good at rationalizing, and especially what you just described. Men have a good way of rationalizing without feeling, and without and which can turn into a sort of it builds the false ego and arrogance and all of the things that men are known for, which gets them into trouble all the time, and gets them into war even. So yeah, this is the defect in men, that they rationalize based on without actually feeling what's going on, and so not being able to see. And because women may not be able to express, as rationally what they're feeling and what's going on inside, men tend to, discount it as being, it's just, doesn't. And so, in this way, put the blame on because they're using their rationality as opposed to trying to feel and be empathetic and understand what's going on. So I think that's a big part of it, is that men have this tendency to rationalize and to analyze according to some formulas, and when those formulas, according to the formula, okay, this problem is here, and as I dissect it and so on, and I did this and she did this and so on, and so this weighs this much and that weighs that much, and it equals out and so on and so forth, and now okay, yeah, I'm on top here and she's down here, and so it's, yeah, I'm right and she's wrong, because of this intellectualizing, rationalizing tendency. I think that's what, at least I find that in myself. I find it when I have when I think, I often, if I step back and I look at it and I say, well, wait a minute, I'm not listening, I'm not hearing, I'm not trying to understand things from my wife's perspective, and I'm applying my own rationalization, and thus, thinking that I'm right and she's wrong. Of course, sometimes I am right and she's wrong, but I mean, and many times she's right and I'm wrong. So but I think we have to, as husbands, we have to be very careful of understanding the differences between us, and not using. And there's books written about all of this. But that's my own. I don't know if that answers your question, but grihastha life. Yes, we have 1 minute or so.
Just in regards to what you were saying about understanding the purports and applying them appropriately, I was thinking about it, and it's really just, sometimes we try, instead of surrendering to the process, we try to control the process in our conditioned state. And it's really nice that we have mentors and senior Vaishnavas and spiritual masters to help guide us through the process for our personal situation. Because I can imagine people that practice outside outside of the association, devotees who get a book from Amazon or something, they're reading the books, but they're just reading from just their own mind, and so it's really hard to navigate your life with just your condition.
Yeah. Scripture needs to be accompanied. Shastra, that's why we have this sadhu, shastra, guru principle, that Scripture on its own can be difficult. We have to associate with devotees and hear and discuss and explore and pray. So yeah. I hope I was able to help that process today. But anyway. Hare Krishna, thank you. Hari Bol, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.